As representatives of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank met this weekend in Washington, D.C., they were once again met with protests. Groups united under the banner of Global Justice Action for a weekend of protests and direct actions. A teach-in was held on economic alternatives to capitalism, entitled the People's Economic Forum. To close the weekend's activities, protesters held a march on the World Bank to express their anger at the $1.1 trillion bailout given to the IMF at the G20 summit earlier this month.
We came together to talk about the world economic crisis and the ways in which it affects the many issues that we confront. And we came together around a people's economic program that we'll be releasing publicly in the weeks to come. And that program was a program that put forward concrete solutions to the housing crisis, concrete solutions to the question of immigration and the need for legalization for immigrant workers, the need to end the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the need to put money towards real jobs programs, towards environmental sustainability, instead of continuing to hand money hand over fist to big banks and big corporations.
I think that one of the reasons for rage against financial institutions is that financial institutions are set up to steal from us. And they're set up to steal from us with the assistance of government. That's one of the primary functions of government. And to be explicit, a primary function of government is to act as muscle to protect the rich as they privatize profits and externalize costs, which is another word for theft. Part of the rage, I think, has to do with something that some people named George, Tom, and John said a little over 200 years ago, maybe 225 years ago, about when a government becomes destructive of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. And I don't have a lot of respect for the so-called founding fathers in a lot of ways, but I think we should take them at their word.
Down with the World Bank!
One of the things that protesters do is they remind people that the system is unjust.
10 protesters were arrested during the weekend, 6 for allegedly inflicting economic damage to several bank buildings, amounting in $110,000, according to the Washington Post. During an earlier demonstration, police used pepper spray to disperse the crowd, leading to several injuries, including skin and eye burns.
Part of the reason for the severe repression is because police repression is theater, and it is terror, and is meant to send a message. And the message is, if you step out of line, this is what will happen to you. And so if they can beat you up, that will perhaps convince me not to protest, not to express my opinion. This is exactly true on a personal level too. There's a saying in the domestic violence movement, one good beating will last a year. That a husband only has to beat his wife once if it's good enough, you know? If it's strong enough that when she looks in his eyes, she sees he could kill me. He doesn't have to beat her all the time. And it's the same with this. Cops don't have to beat everybody. If they beat this person, this person, this person, that's the whole point.
It's become a truism that we live in an era of hope and change. And I think there is truth to that. But we also live in an era of crisis, fear, and instability. And I think the interaction between those factors is what's radicalizing people right now and what's leading millions of people to question the economic system we live in.
I think one of the things that we need to do is to ruthlessly eradicate false hope. One of the smartest things that the Nazis did was they made it so that every step of the way it was in the Jews' rational best interest to not resist. Do you want to get an ID card, or do you want to resist and possibly get killed? Do you want to move to a ghetto, or do you want to resist and possibly get killed? Do you want to get on a cattle car, or do you want to resist and possibly get killed? Do you want to take a shower? Do you want to resist and possibly get killed? Every step of the way, they had the false hope that if they went along, that the dreadful wouldn't happen. And the Nazis were brilliant at setting that up. And, well, I'll tell you one thing that's very important, which is the Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a much higher rate of survival than those who went along. So that's one thing that's very important. But I think we should also bring that lesson home. Well, Zygmunt Bauman says about the whole way the Nazis were able to operate that was that Rational people go quietly, meekly into a gas chamber if only you allow them to believe it's a bathroom. And I would say that rational people go quietly, meekly to the end of the world if only you allow them to believe that buying compact fluorescents is going to save the day. But the problem isn't merely false hope. The problem is hope itself. And I was doing a talk several years ago and bashing hope, and this one person shouted out in the audience, what's your definition of hope? And I didn't know, so I asked the audience. And they came up with a great definition, which is hope is a longing for a future condition over which you have no agency. Hope is a longing for a future condition over which you have no agency. And I was talking to some ninth graders a couple days ago, and I said to them, so what would happen if your parents said to you, please clean your room, and you said, yeah, I hope it gets clean? And the ninth graders understood immediately hope's a non-starter. Hope means you're not going to do anything. And I want to be really clear. I'm not saying we can't hope about anything. It's like a friend of mine said to me several years ago, my brother's dying of cancer. Do you mean I have to say I hope he doesn't survive? I can't hope he survives. I said, no, not at all. Of course you can hope he survives, because that's out of your control. But what you can't do is stand there with car keys in your hand and say, brother, I hope you make it to the hospital.